Hi, everyone. So my name is Andrew Sutherland, and I'm the founder of Quizlet, and I'm really excited to be here this morning talking to you about the Quizlet story and tell you a little bit about the history of the company and what we're working on today and why we're so excited about it. So, uh, so there's sort of a unique story of Quizlet, and I thought it'd be fun to share as we kick off this morning. I started it, like Claire said, as a sophomore in high school when I was 15 for a French class I was taking. And this is in Albany High School, which is in the East Bay in near San Francisco. And so I had this teacher, her name was Miss Selvin, and she had a lot of French vocabulary that she wanted us to learn. She had this amazing class where we did a lot of poetry and a lot of cooking and a lot of really fun stuff. And but we also did a ton of grammar and vocabulary. And so for her class, one day, well, here's us doing some skits that we had written for ourselves. And so one day she gave us an assignment that was 111 French animals that we needed to learn. And so this wasn't just the typical, mouse and cat and stuff like that. It was un bouquetin or le chevreuil, these sort of more obscure things. But for some reason, she decided that was important for us to learn. And so I realized that I didn't have a good system for studying. And so I decided that I would build a little tool that would keep track of all the things I needed to learn and just test me on the stuff that I didn't know. And I had done a little bit of programming before that, and so I had barely enough skills to build it for myself. And so the very first thing that I built is this thing called Learn Mode, which still exists. It's obviously changed a lot, but basically it asks you a question, makes you reproduce the answer, and it checks to make sure that you actually know it. It's not just something that you say in your head, oh yeah, I think I know that. And so it became this really useful tool for studying for me. And I got all my friends in my class also using this tool. And so over a year and a half, I was just working on it nights and weekends, and I would be studying, and I would put I would be working on my worksheets or whatever, and I would realize that I could add a new feature for Quizlet, and I would put my books aside, and I would add it in, and then I'd try it. So I was for a long time the sort of biggest user of Quizlet, and and building it with feedback from myself and my friends. And so in 2007, I launched it publicly so anyone could create their own content on it. And it just started growing. There was never a moment in all of Quizlet's history where it just sort of took off one day. It's always just sort of slowly grown through word of mouth, through teachers telling other teachers about it, through students telling their teachers about it. And one of the really interesting things that I observed early on was that students were coming to class a lot more prepared for anything that the teacher was asking of them. So whether it was being ready to take a test, or it was being ready to have a dialogue in class, like the fact that they knew all the vocab or they knew all the material that their teacher had asked ahead of time meant that the time in class was a lot more productive because everyone was sort of at a higher baseline level of background knowledge. And so it was really exciting for students to experience that, and it was also really gratifying for teachers to see that as well. And so after I finished high school, I went off to MIT and did computer science for 3 years. I studied some speech recognition software stuff, and also at that point I started getting really into broader systems of education and the sort of context in which Quizlet was being used, and what some of the broader problems and challenges and opportunities for teachers and students around the world were. And then after a few years, I moved back to San Francisco, and we got an office where we started hiring a few people. This is the early team picture of just a few of us working at Quizlet, and And that's when it sort of shifted from being this side project that I was building for myself and my friends to, more of a company that was building a product and a little bit and moving a lot faster and building sort of in response to user requests and stuff like that. So then a few years later, we sort of stepped it up a notch again. In 2015, we raised money for the first time, which meant that we could invest a lot more in hiring people, in building features that would be much more useful for learning, but might take a little longer to build. So having investors involved has been a really valuable way for us to grow. And then in 2016, we launched Quizlet Live. Hopefully, many of you have seen the game. If you haven't, then we're going to have plenty of sessions over the next day and tomorrow to talk about Quizlet Live. And so we launched it in 2016. It's the sort of fastest growing thing that we've ever built, and it's just a total joy. This is a photo from one of the classrooms where we were testing it in the early days. And so it was really inspiring to us as we were building it, seeing the joy from students in playing the game. And then last year, we had a big launch of a totally new kind of learning on Quizlet, which was diagrams. So we added the ability to upload an image and then label points on the image and study in a sort of more contextual or visual way. And we had a great response to that. And it's a really sort of useful tool for some subjects that previously weren't even very useful at all. So that's also something that you can check out and use. And we have some sessions about that as well. So we are now, just a brief background on the company. We're about 90 employees. We have 31 million users using Quizlet every month. So it's a sort of surprisingly huge platform. It's been really fun to get it to this point. We have about more than 60% of all US high school students using it, more than 50% of all US college students using it every month. And so that scale has allowed us to both build a really good business and serve a lot of students and teachers and build sort of more useful learning tools because we have a lot of data and a lot of sort of resources to invest deeply in sort of understanding how people are learning on Quizlet. So I'll just talk briefly a little bit about how my role has changed. So I'm now the CTO of Quizlet, which is Chief Technology Officer. And I have sort of two main things that I work on. One is shaping the product and technology direction. So working with all the different teams in the company to pick which technologies to use or shape what new features or games or activities we should build. And another thing that I work on is helping the team stay close to students and teachers. It's a really important thing for us to make sure that we're very responsive to our users and are paying attention to what their needs are. And it's a challenge to be sort of in an office in San Francisco and not be in classrooms and still build something that's really useful and valuable to students and teachers all over the world. So a lot of my time I spend sort of organizing activities that help people stay close to our users. So a couple of these pictures. So one of the things we do is we do a lot of school visits and we go out to schools all over the world. 2 weeks ago, I was in South Africa, and there's a picture of me visiting some students in South Africa. And so that was really fun. And we do a lot of those visits, both near our office and abroad. And that's really helpful in seeing how technology is used, seeing the sort of context in which the product is being used. And then another thing is this is just a fun picture of my French teacher from the beginning of the story. I was visiting her in France last week, and so she's stayed a really close and important part of the Quizlet story, and have a close relationship with her. So I'm really happy that that's remained true. So just a little bit of new information about what we're working on next. We have a big focus right now on international expansion. So one of the big goals for us is to help learners all over the world, not just in the U.S. And about 80% of our students and teachers today are in the U.S. and we want to change that to maybe 50-50 or something like that. And so we're doing a lot of work to make the tool adapted to different countries and market it in different places and sort of understand how it could be used in different contexts. Another thing we're doing is expanding the learning experience. So we're working on making the progress indications on all of our study modes a lot more clear. We just added alternative answers. So if you put in an answer and it grades you incorrect because you only gave 1 of 5 answers or something like that, we're adding a little more flexibility into how we grade our users. So there's a lot of systems like that we're building that are making the core system just a little bit simpler, a little more straightforward or easy to use. And another thing we're working on is working with publishers and teachers to put up verified content. So stuff that we think is really high quality and that we can vouch for the sort of accuracy and authenticity. Because one of the things that we know from the platform is that there's a ton of content on Quizlet, and a lot of it is really great, but some of it might have typos or mistakes. And so we're trying to add, in addition to all of the great user-generated content, add a layer where we can sort of say that this content is definitely correct. And there's a lot more going on. You'll probably hear a little bit more over the next couple of days about what we're working on. And of course, if you stay tuned on our blog and our Twitter and stuff like that, we're launching new stuff and announcing new stuff all the time. So you can hear from there. And so, yeah, that's the main stuff I wanted to say this morning. Just wanted to say thank you to all of you who use Quizlet and who write into our support with suggestions and tell other teachers about it. We really couldn't do it without all of the teachers on the platform. And so it's really exciting to work for you all every day. That's a big part of the motivation for everyone here at the Quizlet office. So thank you for coming to the conference. And I think we have a little bit of time for some question and answer time now. So if you do have any questions, you can put them in the little Zoom Q&A box, and I can try to answer them.
Great. Hi, this is Laura. I work on the Quizlet marketing team with Claire, and I'll just help surface some of these great questions. Please keep them coming. We'll do your best to answer them in live here, but we'll also get back to you privately for those questions that make more sense to answer one-on-one. So here is one from Amina. This is less of a question and more of just a comment. She says, I've used Quizlet in most of my biology classes. It has helped my students play games and learn at the same time. In fact, I want to thank you because 2 of my students who have ADHD have told me it helped them learn things. Please add more images for our terms.
Great.
Thanks, Amina. All right, let's see. Here's another one. I see a question that's a general question about sort of how we handle trust and safety on Quizlet and make sure that people can have a great experience. Michelle says, what steps are you taking to address abuse of the system? I know that students have created bogus sets that mock teachers. That sounds terrible, Michelle. I'm so sorry to hear that. What can the system do to trace back to the creator of a set and offer some protection for teachers who use the system? I think this is probably a good time to talk in general about how we think about supporting our community and the processes and programs we have in place to make sure that Quizlet is a safe place for students and teachers.
Yeah. So I would say the safety and safe environment of Quizlet is of paramount importance to us at Quizlet. We have a bunch of different programs that we have in place to make sure that the community is safe. One of them is the ability to report content. So if you see something like that, where a student is posting bad material, then you can report it, and it goes into a system that gets moderated right away by people here at the Quizlet office. We also have a lot of automated systems that will flag sort of suspicious content or content that is likely to be bad, and so I think we're definitely very careful about that kind of stuff, because it's very important that people have a safe and sort of reliable environment to learn on Quizlet.
Great. I see another question. It's from Victoria. It says, random. What grade did you end up getting in French?
So what grade did I end up getting in French? I think I got A's in her class. I definitely worked really hard in that class. Maybe the hardest I ever worked was in her class. There were some nights we had 3 hours of homework and stuff like that. But one thing that she did teach me that I really appreciated, that I sort of still have in my mind almost every day, is the value of high expectations for students. And she really she wanted all of her students to be performing in French in a very high level, and she knew what our limits were, and she knew how to push them, and she knew how to motivate us to really sort of push past what we thought was possible to learn. And so that was maybe one of the first times I'd really seen that, and it was a really wonderful experience to be in her class.
Great. Jose asked, did you face any roadblocks when creating Quizlet?
Did I face any roadblocks when creating Quizlet? I mean, one of the fortunate things about sort of the internet and these sort of modern programming tools is that the cost of setting up a website or experimenting with a new piece of technology is really low. So even with a Chromebook these days, you can Google for how to set up some programming stuff. You can set up a server, often for free, that can host a website. And so from the early days, I was basically able to build it from my bedroom with just some time after school, and not really any money going into it. So I was really grateful for that. And other roadblocks, I think it's hard to hire people. We've over the last year, we've hired a lot of new people, but in Silicon Valley especially, the competition for people and talent and the salaries and stuff like that is often a difficult thing to manage, but we're doing pretty well on that now. But in the sort of earlier days, it was hard to convince people that Quizlet was going to be this big thing that every student in the world might use, and it would really be transformative to education. And so those were some early challenges.
Oscar says, we would like to see you in Turkey as well. Please visit us.
Oh, I would love to come to Turkey. That'd be great.
Here's a question about Quizlet Live. Are you setting up a way for students to use normal logins rather than add their names? They're creative, quote unquote, with their names, and I normally freeze the projector while they log in. Use their normal logins to make it easier and able to track their progress.
That's a great suggestion. We should probably do something like that. I think that's a request we've gotten before, and something that would probably be pretty straightforward to build. So thank you for raising that, and we'll discuss that on the team.
Here's a question from Tanya. I think this is a great question because it speaks to why we love hearing from teachers. We recently added a feature where we do auto suggestions as you're creating a set. Tanya says, I want my students to use the vocabulary and definitions I give them, but as a study skill, I want students to learn to use Quizlet. So they have that as a resource in the future. Is there a way to not have suggested definitions pop up when they're entering terms? Or should I instead focus my energy on getting the students to verify on their own, just as I teach them for online resources?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think maybe some of both. You can with the suggestions, it's pretty straightforward to turn them off. So there's a little icon where you can click it, and it'll disable the suggestions. So you can ask your students to do that. But then, yeah, it's also something that's reasonable to ask is to ask the students to verify the content, or be a little bit careful about what they choose.
Great. Sandy asks, do you only hire computer technology people, tech savvy teachers looking for job changing? Haha.
Okay, good question. No, we hire a lot of different types of people. We have a lot of engineers on the team, about 50 or so, but the rest of people come from a lot of different backgrounds. And so we have on our jobs page a lot of open roles right now, maybe even like 20 plus different roles that are open for hiring right now. So if you go to Quizlet.com/jobs, you'll be able to see what we have open and see if anything might fit for you.
Great. Debbie wants to know, do you randomly choose schools to visit, or does the teacher need to request a visit by you? Basically, how do we get you to come visit a school?
Well, yeah, we love doing school visits, and we can we have a system for sort of finding teachers, but we can also, if you write into Quizlet support, then you can request that, and we can go from there.
Great. Let's see. Lots of questions in here. I'm just trying to find a couple good ones. Oh, here's a good one. Monica wants to know, if I want to become a teacher that makes teacher-approved content, what should I do? I think this is about our verified content, or verified creator program.
Yes. Great question. I believe there's a page on our website. It's the verified content creator page. And I think we can post a link to that in the comments, and there should be some information about how to join up or request more information about that.
Monica asks, will these questions be answered during the actual sessions? I've never used Quizlet, and I'm not following the technical questions that are being asked. Monica, that's a great question. And yes, well, our very next session will be an overview of Quizlet, what content on Quizlet looks like, and how to get started. So hold tight. We promise we'll help you get ramped up so that you're set up to use Quizlet this year with your classroom. Let's see, what else is good to... Oh, here's a nice one that says, I just want to say thank you very much indeed for creating this wonderful learning tool, which reinforces information in a variety of ways. It's unparalleled. I and my class simply love it.
Well, thank you very much. Glad to hear it. Okay, I think we've covered all the questions we have time for right now. There are going to be many more opportunities for questions throughout the day. So thank you all for taking the time to get up early if you're on the West Coast or different parts of the world, and we're excited for the rest of the day. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew. We're going to take a quick break for just a couple minutes while we switch in presenters. But for the next session, stay tuned to hear from Amalia about how you can really get started on Quizlet and learn about the tools that we have for teachers.